The rain had been falling for hours when I missed the sign. In my defense, the storm was biblical. Sheets of water slamming down so hard my windshield wipers gave up trying. Trees blurred into shadows. Headlights were halos. I should have pulled over, waited it out. But I just wanted to get home. So I kept driving. Somewhere between mile marker 112 and a gas station that didn't exist anymore, I turned. I don't remember doing it. The GPS didn't reroute. One moment I was on Route 17, the next I was somewhere else. A narrow road. No lines. No shoulder. Just cracked asphalt snaking into the dark. I assumed it was a detour. It wasn't. There were no signs. No lights. No houses. Just forest pressing in on both sides like a vice. The trees were wrong too. Taller than they should be. Black-barked and glistening like wet bone. The rain hissed through their branches like whispers. I drove slower. 10 minutes in, the road narrowed. 15 and I passed a mailbox. Rusty. Leaning. No name. Then the static started. Came from the radio even though I'd turned it off. A low, crackling buzz like a voice trying to form syllables but never quite managing. Then it did manage. Just one word. Over and over. My name. Daniel. I stopped the car. Silence. The static was gone. The rain too. Just gone. I rolled down the window. No sound. No wind. No dripping. That's when I realized I couldn't see my breath anymore. Not because it was warm, but because I wasn't breathing. Not exactly. Felt like I was remembering how to breathe, rather than doing it. Like my lungs were just going through the motions. I turned the ignition. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Then the headlights flickered, and something ran across the road. Something tall. Too tall. Its arms scraped the treetops. But it made no sound. And it left no splash in the puddles. I sat there, frozen, watching the woods. The light caught only trunks and shadow. But I knew it was there, just outside the reach of the beams. Then the radio whispered again. Only this time it wasn't my name. It was a question. Do you remember? I didn't, but I was about to. The forest opened up eventually, not into a town or a clearing, but into something stranger. A house. It stood alone beside the road, wrapped in vines and moonless shadow. 3 stories tall. Windows like eye sockets. Shutters askew. One side sagged, like it was leaning into the earth. It looked abandoned, but the porch light was on. Flickering. Bare bulb. Yellow and sickly like old teeth. I didn't want to go inside, but I couldn't stay in the car. The engine still wouldn't turn. The air inside had gone stale, like breath left too long in a balloon. I opened the door and stepped out. The forest didn't move, didn't breathe. It watched. The gravel under my boots crunched too loudly. Or maybe that was just the silence amplifying everything. I walked slowly, each step heavy and deliberate. The porch creaked before I even touched it. A spider the size of my palm darted away. I reached for the door. It opened on its own. A long, low groan of hinges, like something sighing from deep within. Inside was warmer, dusty, but warmer. The hallway stretched too far, bending to the left. Faded wallpaper peeled like sunburn. Picture frames lined the walls, all of them empty. Just gray smears where faces used to be. I called out, "Hello!" No answer, but something shifted upstairs. Floorboards moaning under weight. I told myself it was just the house settling. I was lying. The floor beneath me was damp. Not soaked, just clammy. Like the whole house was sweating. The air smelled of wet cloth and old blood. I moved forward, deeper into the corridor. Rooms branched off left and right. One was a parlor. Broken piano, missing keys, a couch with stuffing spilling out like entrails. Another, a dining room with a long table covered in moldy dishes. Plates with blackened food. Silverware rusted to the bone. A staircase rose at the end of the hall, and next to it a mirror. Tall, gilded, cracked. I saw myself in it, but not fully. Something behind me, too, just out of frame. A blur. A shape. I turned. Nothing there. When I looked back, the mirror was clean. No cracks. And no reflection. Just black. Then the whisper came again, this time from inside the mirror. Upstairs. I didn't want to, but I went. Each step creaked like a scream. Dust puffed from the carpet like ash. The hallway above was lined with doors, each closed. Some had locks, others handprints. One had a hole punched through it from the inside out. I reached the last one. It was open, barely. A light flickered within. I pushed it open and found a child's bedroom. Wallpaper of stars. A bed with a canopy. Toys scattered across the floor. Dust covered everything, except for the rocking chair in the corner. It was moving, slowly, back and forth. Creak, creak, creak. I didn't want to look, but I did. The chair was empty, but the shadow it cast wasn't. A long, thin silhouette, arms too long, head too high, watching me. I stepped back. The whisper came again. You left me here. No, I said aloud. No, I didn't. I don't know this place. But I did. I didn't want to admit it, but some part of me remembered. This wasn't the first time I'd walked that hallway. Wasn't the first time I'd climbed those stairs. The road hadn't taken me somewhere new. It had taken me back, to where it all began. The memory came like a fever dream, a flashlight beam, my father's hand, that voice. Don't open that door. I was small. The hallway felt taller then. The wallpaper newer, the air less rotten. But the fear was the same, and the door was still there. Back then I'd asked what was in the basement. He told me it wasn't a basement, that the stairs went somewhere else, that I should never go down. But I had. I remember the cold stone beneath my feet, the smell of dirt and copper, the way the light didn't follow me down. I remember the door at the bottom, metal, bolted, and the scratching from the other side. Now, standing at the top of the staircase again, the years hadn't dulled it. The light above flickered once, and then stayed off, total dark, except for the soft red glow coming from beneath the floorboards. I didn't want to go down. I went anyway. Each step was a breath I didn't take. Wood groaned beneath me. Dust choked the air. By the time I reached the bottom, I was shaking. The door was still there. Only now it was open. The metal frame bent like something pushed through. Inside, it wasn't a basement. It was a tunnel. The walls were stone, sweating. Roots dangled like veins. The ground sloped downward. The red light came from nowhere or from everywhere. My head hurt. Something moved ahead. A scraping sound. Slow. Wet. I turned back. The staircase was gone. Behind me was just wall. Panic rose. I pressed my hand against the stone, heart hammering, trying to remember how this could be real. How I could have forgotten this place. Forgotten her. Because I hadn't come down here alone, all those years ago. She had followed me. Her name was Lily, my sister. I kept walking. I don't know how long the tunnel was. Time stopped matching. Sometimes it was narrow. Sometimes it opened into small, circular chambers filled with bones, or rusted toys, or mirrors that showed people who weren't me. Sometimes I heard breathing that wasn't mine. Eventually I reached a wooden door. Not like the metal one above. This one looked recent. Clean. Like it didn't belong. A note was pinned to it. You left her. Don't lie about it now. I opened the door. The room was a nursery, lit by a bare bulb that buzzed and swayed, though there was no wind. A crib stood in the center. It was empty, but something was behind it. A shape too tall. Long arms. No face. Pointed at the crib, then at me. And then it spoke. She waited. Its voice was whined through hollow wood. A chorus of sighs. 1,000 voices that all knew my name. She waited and you never came back. I didn't know, I whispered. I was a child. It leaned closer. Children see, but they forget. You saw her fall. The memory hit me like ice water. The game we played. The stairs. The candle. The scream. Lily had gone through the door before me. I'd been too scared to follow. I ran. No one ever found her. They called it a disappearance. But I knew the truth. And the house did too. The shadow stepped back, gestured toward the crib again. Inside something moved. A small hand. Gray. twisted. Reaching up, I stepped closer. She looked up at me. Her eyes were wrong, wide, black, endless. But she smiled. "Hi, Tommy." No one had called me that since I was 8. I dropped to my knees. "I'm sorry." "I know," she said. "But it's too late now." The walls of the nursery peeled away, revealing a void, stars spinning, red light pulsing, shapes too big to exist circling far beyond. The crib vanished. Lily remained, but not as she was. Now she towered over me, limbs thin as branches, mouth stretched too wide. She was the forest. She was the road. She was the reason I'd returned. "You'll stay this time," she said. The door slammed shut behind me. The door behind me was gone. No knob, no hinges, just black bark, pulsing, breathing, like I'd stepped inside a tree and it had healed shut around me. I turned. Lily was gone too, but her voice lingered, like the wind. "Stay." I ran. I don't know where I thought I was going. The nursery had faded into rot and root. The walls were no longer stone, but wood, bark, pulsing with veins of amber light. Like the forest above had grown down, swallowing the tunnel, twisting it into its own image. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. Collapsed into moss that wasn't moss. Felt warm, damp, like flesh. That's when I noticed the trees had faces. Not carved, grown. Mouths stretched across trunks, half open in screams. Eyes bulging from knots, some twisted into laughter. Others watched me, not blinking, not human, but aware. And behind them, deeper still, the thing. It didn't move like it had a shape, just mass. Tendrils of root and hair and shadow dragging along the ground. Its form shifted with each flicker of light, sometimes tall as the trees, sometimes a woman's shape, sometimes something with too many legs. It didn't approach, just waited, watched. I crawled backward. The forest whispered. Names, places, things I'd never told anyone. My first lie. The dead bird I buried when I was 6. The time I thought about hurting someone, just to see if I could. It knew everything, because it had always been there. I realized it then. This wasn't a place I'd gone. This was a place I'd made. Memory and guilt and things too big to face. The road didn't take me away. Took me inward. And the house? That was just the gate. The forest had no end. No sky. No time. It was punishment. Or penance. Or maybe just truth. I walked for what felt like days. No hunger. No thirst. Just dread. And the constant, gnawing sound of something moving just out of sight. Eventually, I found a cabin. Not the cabin. This one was simpler. Older. A single room. The door was open. Inside, a table. 2 chairs. A fireplace with no fire. And a mirror over the mantel. Dusty. Cracked. I looked in. And saw her. Not Lily. Me. Older. Eyes sunken. Dirty. Smiling. I blinked. The reflection didn't. It raised a hand. So did I. Tilted its head. I didn't. It smiled wider. Teeth like pine needles. Eyes like oil. Then it stepped out of the mirror. Not through it. Like the glass had been water all along. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. It stood in front of me now, taller, darker. Still me, but not. "You're not real," I said. It just grinned. "You're the one that left," it said. "I stayed. I didn't know how. You still don't. That's why you're back." It reached out, touched my chest. I felt my heart slow. Pain, like ice through my spine. Images flickering, not memories but possibilities. Me staying at the top of the stairs. Me closing the door and walking away forever. Me never remembering until it was far too late. The other me leaned close. Whispered, "There's no road back." Then darkness, like falling asleep underwater. I awoke face down in water. Not deep, maybe an inch or two. Cold. Stagnant. The floor beneath was wood, swollen and soft. When I pushed myself up, my hands sank slightly, as if the boards had skin. I was back in the cabin. But it was wrong now. The windows were blacked out. The walls breathed. The mirror was gone. I stood. My body ached. There were footsteps above me. Slow. Deliberate. Impossible, this place had no second floor. I waited. The footsteps stopped. Then tap, tap, tap. From the ceiling. I looked up. Faintly, I saw a face through the boards, mine, grinning. And then I realized I wasn't in the cabin. I was beneath it, in a place that shouldn't exist. A knock came from the wall behind me. I turned. A door. Small. Barely my height. I didn't want to open it. But I did. Inside was a hallway of mirrors. Tall, thin, warped. Each one reflected something different. In one, my face covered in blood. In another, no face at all. In another, Lily holding my hand, smiling. Then turning to Ash. I moved through the corridor slowly. The mirrors whispered. You ran. She called your name. You didn't answer. She fell. She screamed. You left. The end of the hallway opened into a room with no walls, only fog. Dense, wet, lit from nowhere. And in the center stood him. Me, but older. Dressed in funeral clothes. Holding a candle that didn't burn. He looked at me with a sadness I couldn't bear. She's not angry, he said. Just waiting. Where? He pointed behind me. I turned. The fog thinned. There was a hill. A grave. A single stone with no name. She's not buried there, he said. You are. No. You died the day you left her. My hands trembled. He handed me the candle. You can go now, he said. Go where? He smiled. Where you've always been going. The fog parted again, revealing a path. The road, black, winding, leading into a forest I knew wasn't above, but below the world. Place no maps showed. I stepped forward, and the candle flickered to life. Its flame was black. The candle barely lit the way. It didn't cast light, not in the usual sense. It swallowed the darkness around it. A sphere of anti-light, like looking into a hole torn in the world. But I followed it. The forest bent to avoid the flame. Trees leaned back. Branches curled. Moss hissed as I passed. Somewhere behind me something followed, quiet at first, then louder. Not footsteps, a dragging sound, like something pulling itself, limb over roots and bone. I didn't look back. Ahead, the road split. One way led uphill to a crooked chapel choked by vines. The other descended into a pit where water boiled without fire. I chose the chapel. The candle seemed to hum, as if approving. The door was open. Inside, the pews were filled not with people but shapes. Draped in burlap. Silent. Facing forward. At the altar stood a mirror. But this one was black. No reflection. No glass. Just the suggestion of a surface. The candle flickered. Then went out. The silence deepened. Then I heard her. Why didn't you come back? I turned. Nothing. Why didn't you save me? A shape stepped from the pews. It wore Lily's face. Her dress. Her eyes. But the smile wasn't hers. You weren't supposed to live, it said. You were supposed to remember. I do, I whispered. Then say it. I opened my mouth and felt something pull in my throat, like a string being yanked. No lies. It hissed. Say what you did. I left her. Why? Because I was afraid. The creature nodded. It stepped forward and pressed its forehead to mine. You may pass, it whispered, and then it collapsed into ash. The mirror behind the altar rippled. I stepped through. I fell again into a house, not a cabin this time. Suburban. Familiar. The layout was my childhood home. But wrong. The walls pulsed like veins. The carpet squelched. The photos were all just eyes. I was in a memory, but one twisted, devoured by something deeper. In the kitchen, my mother stood at the stove, humming. Only she had no mouth. She turned to me. The basement is leaking, she said, though her face never moved. I know. You left the door open again. I nodded. I didn't mean to. You never mean to, she said. But it always ends the same. I walked past her. The basement door was ajar. From below came the sound of the ocean, and something crying. The stairs went on longer than they should have. Far longer. I descended for what felt like hours, maybe days. The walls changed the deeper I went. From plaster to stone. From stone to something like cartilage. Like the inside of a throat. And the sound of waves grew louder. Finally, the staircase ended. I stepped into water. Salt. Cold. Knee-high and rising. The basement was gone. In its place, a vast, drowned cathedral. Pillars of bone. Ceilings of kelp. The ocean roared in silence. A bell tolled once, but it came from beneath the water. I moved forward. Shapes swam below. Some of them wore faces. One had my face. Another wore my brother's. Then hers. Lily. She floated just under the surface, eyes open. Lips moving. I bent down. Listened. She was whispering the same word over and over. Coma home, coma home, come. I reached for her and she vanished. But something else surfaced. A door. Wooden. Painted red. Floating upright like it belonged in a hallway. Not here. I opened it. Inside was night. Not dark night. A field of stars overhead. Grass below. And in the center, a swing set. I knew this place. She used to push me on the swings here. Long before the accident. Before the forest. Before we ever learned what it meant to lose something that doesn't want to be found. She was sitting on the swing. Lily. No blood. No smile. Just her. She looked up. You came back. I nodded. I didn't mean to leave. She looked at the stars. They aren't real, she said. None of this is. I know. She stood. It's still coming, you know? The thing in the woods. I figured. But you might still escape. If you take the road again. I looked past her. Another door waited there. This one white. Old. With a brass knob. Where does it go? Not back. Not forward. Then where? She smiled, not cruelly, but like someone who knew something I didn't. Sideways. I took her hand. We walked through. The stars blinked out one by one. The ocean returned. But now I was in its heart. A place that didn't know what time was. That had never learned what it meant to die. The door behind us sealed shut. I turned, but it was already gone. Like everything else the island didn't want remembered. Lily was no longer beside me. I stood in a tower made of mirrors. Each panel reflected something different. Not me. Not exactly. One showed me sleeping. Another showed me screaming. A third I couldn't even describe. My face was missing. Not absent, but removed, like a sticker peeled off glass. I walked the narrow hall. The mirrors bent inward, forming a tight spiral. In the center stood a pedestal. Upon it, the watch. My watch. But its hands were turning backward. Faster and faster. I reached for it, and the mirrors shattered. Soundlessly, the shards hovered around me like frozen lightning. Each reflected a different moment. My brother bleeding in the snow. My father face down in bathwater. The hospital hallway. My own hands wringing red into the sink. I screamed. Or tried to. No sound came out. Only the ticking. Tick, tick, tick. Faster. Then silence. The watch had stopped. And the tower collapsed. Not in pieces, but in reverse, folding in on itself like an origami ruin, vanishing into a single point. And I stood again. On the road. But now it was white. Covered in ash. No sky. No stars. Just a pale emptiness that stretched forever. The road pulsed beneath my feet. Not like stone, but something alive. I knelt. Touched it. It was warm. And beneath the white dust, there were faces. Dozens. Hundreds. Pressed into the road like fossils. Mouths open. Screaming. Or maybe laughing. I walked. There was nowhere else to go. A voice followed. You're doing well. Lily again? No. Someone older. Someone inside. The road began to incline. Steeper. Sharper. I clawed my way upward as the dust blew into my eyes. At the top of the hill, a chair. An old wooden rocking chair. It rocked slowly, creaking. No one sat in it. But a coat was draped over the back. I recognized it. My grandfather's. He was the first to disappear, they said. Took the road. never came back. But I remembered now. He did come back. Once. One night. Knocking at the window. Naked. Covered in salt. Eyes wrong. Voice worse. He hadn't spoken in words. But I heard him anyway. And now I realized he hadn't come back for us. He had come back to warn us. We didn't listen. Now it was my turn to knock. To return. To warn. If it wasn't too late. I sat in the chair. It didn't feel like wood. It felt like memory. Dense, splintered, wet with old tears. The coat on the back smelled of brine and rot. I closed my eyes. The wind rose. But not the wind of air. The wind of thought, of guilt, of years compressed into a scream that never stopped echoing. I saw my grandfather again. Not as he was in life, but as he had become. A face twisted in warning. A man turned into message. He had taken this road once. So had I. But unlike him, I still had a choice. The chair creaked. Not back and forth, but forward. Like it was moving me. And then I saw it. The road returning. Unwinding behind me. Back through the woods. Past the chapel. Past the black-flamed candle. Through the drowned cathedral and the swing set and the house that breathed and the forest that remembered. A ribbon of white running through everything I'd ever tried to bury. And ahead? A sign. A real one. Wooden. Hand-carved. Splintered and old. It read, "The road that wasn't there." And beneath it, carved in a smaller hand, older, barely legible. "But you were." I stepped off the chair. The moment I did, the world began to fold. Not in collapse, but in reassembly. Like the road had been waiting for someone to acknowledge it. To name it. To own it. The forest shifted. The faces in the trees stopped watching. And the voice, hers, came again. But softer now. Closer to peace than blame. "Tell them." I nodded. I would. I didn't know how far the road would take me. Or if it would bring me back to the world I'd known. But I would walk it. Not to escape, but to carry. To warn. To say, "I remember now." As I walked, the light began to change. From black to gray to something like morning. And behind me, the chair finally stopped rocking.